What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Travis. Of course, this is TWA Motorsports, and today we are tackling some cleaning. And when I say today, this video is probably going to go a couple, if not more sessions, because we are going to do a deep cleaning under the hood. We're going to clean up some stuff that I don't like some wiring that I don't like in certain places. We're going to take some stuff off that I don't think this car needs. We're going to add a few performance things, not a lot. Just mainly for cleanup purposes, but we need to get started. So the very first thing that I did is I got a cheap drop cloth, like a plastic drop cloth. I put it over the top. You know, we just replaced the top. Obviously, I'm not going to be spraying that crazy that far back, but we also just repainted the wipers, replaced the wiper motor, and cleaned up that whole area. So I don't want the cleaning that I'm doing here, which I'm going to start on the hood and work my way down. I don't want all that falling on what I've already cleaned. So I figured these are relatively cheap, like what, $1 maybe for one of these, and that could save me a little bit of time. So what I plan on doing, guys, is I'm literally just going to be using some super clean, a series of detail brushes and toothbrushes, mainly toothbrushes, to be quite honest with you, and some microfiber towels. That's pretty much what we're going to be knocking all this dirt off with. So we're going to start up top here, and the cracks and crevices. I don't know if you guys can see that buildup of just junk over the years. I haven't washed this car yet. I was actually going to wash it before I brought it in here, but I got to thinking I'm going to be throwing stuff all over, so there's no real sense in doing that. So we'll wash it up after we get all under the hood cleaned. But yeah, we got a lot. You're gonna see a lot of time lapse in this video, guys. So really, like I said, super clean toothbrushes and some detail brushes and some microfibers is really all you need to get started. We may use some different stuff. I may grab the vacuum when we get down to the engine, but for now we're gonna start with the hood, and wish me luck. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but some of this is wet, and that's because we've got a helper out here cleaning. He loves to clean. And so he's been doing these areas right here, doing a pretty good job. So we've got the hood done, and it looks way better. Now we've got, you know, just one pass, I guess technically two passes. We're gonna go over it again at some point, but for now, that's about as good as I'm gonna get it. All the big stuff's off. But now we're gonna concentrate here, and this is where we're probably gonna go over it once with the brushes and kind of in different areas, and then I'm gonna take some stuff off We're gonna clean underneath some stuff, move some stuff around, but we're gonna keep going here. Now that we went around the outer sides, we're gonna start taking some stuff off. The first thing I'm gonna start with, probably should have unhooked this first, is the battery. Just an 8mm, should be an 8mm on both sides, but this one has a 9/16. I don't know if somebody's put something on it. Once you get this off, then there's a 13mm that holds this thing. It's supposed to hold it from moving. As you can see, this thing still moves. Probably because this is the incorrect battery. It's not even the right battery for this thing. And to be honest with you, I've had issues with it, so I'm gonna be replacing it anyway. Matter of fact, I doubt the car will even start right now. I had to jump it to move it here. So we'll get this unhooked and get the battery out of place. This is the part I'm talking about. We're gonna give that a good clean up, and then I'm gonna clean the threads. This, I thought I was gonna snap it, and generally you do if the battery's been in here for a while. And actually this is broken. There's supposed to be a ridge on the front that holds the battery. This one's broke. Pretty common. So even if I had, I don't know if I have another one of these laying around, I may have another one. If I do, I may switch out this coolant tank to hold the battery down. At this point, we've got a really good start, guys. So we got the hood, and the hood looks so much better. It's ridiculous. I'll still probably go over it one more time. There's some small stuff I think I can get out, just a couple stain spots. But either way, we did a pretty good job on the fender. My son, he was out here helping. He's a scrubbing machine. He just wants to clean, I'll tell you that. But look, we've got all the outers, at least as best as we can get it with what's in the way. And so we're gonna have to move some stuff around, and I'm gonna be taking some stuff off. Remember, I told you we're gonna do a few performance things. This next couple things won't really be performance related more than it is just a nice cleanup under the hood. But the very first thing I'm going to do now that we've got that stuff clean is I'm gonna take the EGR off. So this is, so from 98 to 2000, these cars had EGR, which is exhaust gas recirculation. And so you will have this guy right here, and you won't see those on the 01 and 02s because it did not have that. But I'm gonna take this off. We're gonna tune this out of the computer at some point. So what we need to do is we need to unplug this. We have a couple different spots where this is connected. So it comes out of the exhaust, recirculates gas into the intake. So I'm gonna take this 10mm out here. We're gonna pull this guy straight up. I'm gonna take the 10 out here and the 10 out here and get this canister out of the way. Literally, guys, that's gonna be trash. And then there's 2 more 10s down here that go into the exhaust. So you can see those right there. So we're gonna go ahead and pop that out of the way. and that'll clean that up, and we'll talk about what we're going to seal that up with, because obviously we're going to have a hole in our exhaust and a hole in our intake. We'll talk about that later, but for now, let's get that out of the way. These may be kind of tight. Oh, they made a liar out of me here. And I always keep these, even though I'm going to toss this and trash it basically. I always keep the bolts because a lot of GM stuff is metric, and so I keep this like in an extra bolt bin. You never know when you might need one to put in a random spot. So you can see, not much to it. And you don't have to take that off. To me, it just makes life a little easier. It's less cumbersome to drag it out. Grab the one out of the intake here. And then you should be able to just pull that up and out. And then I'm gonna set something in that hole so we don't accidentally drop something. You can see I put something over that to cover it. This one on this side, you may have to, I think I'm gonna have to switch over and get a swivel and a short 10 to get to those. And I may even have to go down to a 1/4 inch drive. Maybe not, but we'll see. The top one's not bad. It's the one on the bottom that the pipe's kind of in the way. And so it's kind of a pain. As a matter of fact, I don't even know that I can get a 1/4 inch drive in there. I may have to get a ratcheting wrench and do it with that. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to take it out with a ratcheting wrench. We'll go ahead and take this top one out. Sometimes you can spin it around, get a little better access. It's a tight fit, that's for sure. I used to cut these. I've taken hundreds of these off over the years. All right, let's just get a ratcheting wrench. I was able to get a ratcheting wrench down here. You may have to kind of pull up as you go. There's not a lot of room to get your hand in there. Once we get that one loose though, there's still two 15 millimeters that hold it to the top of the head here. So we're gonna have to grab a 15 and take that off. There's one kind of at the bottom and at the top. Holy cow, they're tight. It shouldn't be very long though. I'll kind of show you guys once I get them out what I'm talking about here. Not sure who invented the ratcheting wrench, but I'm glad they did. I use them on a lot of stuff. All right, so let's get this thing out of here if we can. Move this wiring over. The wiring that comes off that's wrapped in like foil, that goes to your AC. So you can see what I'm talking about. You have these two guys right here. Oh, so you have a 15 there and then a 15 down at the bottom. But this is completely out of our way now. And then like I said, we'll talk about you know, what we're going to be plugging those holes with a little later. The next thing I want to show you guys, you can see that opening right there. That's what we just took off on one side, and then the opening up top, that's the other. That's what I'm plugging up. If something falls in the exhaust, I'm not as concerned. But the next thing I'm going to take off is the air injection. So you notice there's another pipe hooked right above that pipe, and then it goes up to this line right there, goes all the way around, and it tees off in the back, and then it comes down this fender. That's what that big pipe is, and goes underneath to a pump. Well, what that does is it injects air into the exhaust to help it pass emissions. Kind of a hokey deal if you ask me. But we're gonna take those 10 millimeters out. I'm gonna take them out on both sides and get those pipes loose. You can see I've got those loose now. And look, you can do this the easy way, or you could try to snake it out all at once. I'm just gonna take something and cut that rubber hose right there, because I am not gonna be reusing this. And I'll kind of show you guys, I'm gonna cut that off, but leave the rest because there's some other stuff that I want to take off before I go taking all of that section of tube out. But we can go ahead and cut those off if we want. But the next thing I want to do is I want to take this box, this controller. This is a traction control car. So everything comes into this and then it goes to the throttle body. And so like on my Trans Am, you won't see this because it is not a traction control car. It has two lines, one for the cruise and one for the throttle that comes in on the intake, but you don't have this big thing here. So we're gonna unplug this thing because we're gonna relocate it. I don't like it here. It looks tacky. And there's a cool little spot that we can put it, and I'll show you guys, of course, as we're going. But we need to unplug this guy and take what looks like, I think that's a 13 out, and just get this guy moved out of the way. We'll probably just set it over here for now. And it is a 13. But you can see that we'll have a lot cleaner looking spot here if we move this somewhere else. So what I'm gonna do is I think there may be, yeah, there's another one. Down the bottom. 13 also. Once we got it loose, you can unclip it on the AC line here. We're just gonna move it down here for now. Just kind of out of the way. So next thing I wanna do is I wanna take this 10 millimeter ground off. You see the ground strap we have right here? Of course it wants to move on me. Holy cow. The bottom one's moving. Maybe able to bust it out. Nope. So it's a 13 on the bottom, but a 10 on the top. So we need to get this. I may have to grab a pair of pliers to hold that. Just why we break it loose. Really didn't want to do this because I didn't want to put any scratches in they don't have to have, you know. Yep. I may have to see if I can get a really small 13 underneath there. Or try to get it really tight and then try to loosen it quickly. Not gonna happen. All right, we may have to hold that from the bottom here after a while, and I'll show you that. The next thing though is I want to unplug all this stuff. Another thing I've always hated about these cars is they ram everything on top of the fender. It looks so terrible. So we're going to unplug each and every one of these, and you're going to see we're going to have a ton of dirt under them because obviously couldn't really move them around. So So we're gonna unplug each and every one of these, and don't worry, they're specific, so they only plug in a certain area. So we've got that loose. This next one goes all the way under the car. There's a vacuum line that we need to unplug right here. Sorry if you guys can't see that. I'll try to show you here in a minute once I get it unplugged. Wouldn't you know it, it broke. You can see that little canister right there. That vacuum line went on the top of it. It broke, so we are going to have to source another one of those. But now that we've got that, there's one other clip that I need to undo. See where that wiring harness goes into that little clip? We'll just use a flat blade screwdriver, pop that open. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a 10mm and get the computer out of the way. There's two tins back here that hold the computer. It's a tray, and if it's had any water or lived a rough life, generally you'll snap these off. There's two tins right beside each other that hold the computer tray in place. We want to take those out because we want the computer to be a little loose. And this will all make sense as we go along, or at least I hope it will for you guys. If you ever have to pull a computer out of an F-body, this is the easiest way. Because once the computer's loose, the whole thing, or once that tray's loose, the whole thing moves around and gives you a little better access to pulling the computer. So you have, see how it moves now? So I'm gonna take my 7mm, I think it's 7 or an 8, and we're gonna take the actual harness loose from the computer. Once you have those two undone, you should be able to kind of move them around and get them out of the way over here. If these guys come out too, they're supposed to go inside here. So these push down inside. You can just use a flat blade screwdriver, just be careful. And then we can get this kind of up here out of our way. And I'm trying not to scratch any more than obviously we're trying to clean stuff up. But once we do that, we should be able to pull the computer out. You can either do it like, there's little clips on it that hold it in place. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to. Should be able to get it here. I should have taken this out when we had the cowl out, because it is easier. But there's a couple clips on the bottom of this thing that kind of hold the computer in. And so if you can get the computer started out of the holder, that helps. If you kind of work your way back and forth, you should be able to. Maybe. I don't think this computer's ever been out before, so it's tough. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my light down in there. See if I can show you guys what's going on. So you can see the computer has little clips in that black plastic piece that hold it in place. It's kind of hard for me to show you here, but once I get it out, maybe I can show you guys what I'm talking about. That way it'll be easier for you to know what clips I'm talking, or what clips you need to undo. Well, after fighting it, I was actually able to drag it out with it out in the clip, but you can see what I'm talking about here. This thing needs a good cleaning, but these little clips on the bottom, you just gotta push it out of that. It's not really a lot that holds it, but now that we've got it out, we'll take a look back there because it's pretty gross. Look at all the leaves back there. So the reason we took that out is we're gonna be drilling some holes to run this wire underneath. So I wanted that out of the way so we didn't have it, and obviously we're gonna have to clean down there, and I knew that was gonna be the case after looking at the wiper cowl when I did it. So at this point, guys, I'm gonna vacuum that out, and we'll probably do it a couple times, but I'm gonna go ahead and vacuum that out. But I'm gonna get this thing off the ground, and we're gonna get the wheel off on this side so we can look at what we need to be doing. We've got the thing off the ground. I took the wheel off. Guys, make sure that you're not hitting the fender when you're jacking these up. Get on the frame. This one has obviously been lifted before by somebody who has bent that under, which is pretty common on these cars, especially with some age on them. But either way, we need to get this inner fender liner out. So in order to do that, you should have some 7mm. You see one there. I think there's a total of 3, and then you'll have some clips here. And so we need to get this fender liner out of the way, and I noticed there's a big bunch of leaves right there, so it needed to come out of the way to get clean behind anyway. Now, I'm not going to focus on any kind of cleaning under here right now. We will do that in a different video, but for now, we do need to get this out of the way. So we're going to take those out. There may be another clip, depending on if it's broken or not, underneath on the bottom side here. But if it's not, then you'll need to take it out as well. So we'll get the fender out of the way, and then we'll see what we need to do next. The fender liner is out with a little bit of struggle. Sometimes these pieces like this, you don't have to take that one out. And I forgot to tell you guys, there are 2 10mm that go right here on the front side. And then just a plastic, it's like a plastic insert like this with a screw in it. A lot of times they're stripped out, so you just have to pull the centers out and the fender liners out. But here's what we need to do. Obviously we unplugged all this stuff up here, and we want to run it under the fender, and I did this on the red car. And if you guys look back at that video, I'm going to show you a little bit more than I showed you on it, because I'm doing it a little bit differently. So I bought some grommets, and I'll list these in the description down below. Pretty good size, but I want to put this grommet like right here because we don't want jagged edges poking our wire. I want to put it kind of up here in the corner so you can see what I'm talking about there. But we're obviously going to have to drill a hole for that to happen. The other thing is, all these wires unplugged here on the top of the fender, with the exception of this guy. You see this one in the loom, and it goes underneath here and comes to your ABS. So you're going to have to unclip it from the ABS here, and thread that wire up through so we can pass it back through the hole once we get that put in place. So at this point, I'm going to kind of mark off the area that I want to drill. Should be right in this area right here, and I'll probably move that grommet to the bottom and mark it a couple times. I may sacrifice one because it comes in 6. Cut the center out so I know exactly where I want it, and then we'll mark it with the center cut out the spot that we need to drill, essentially. So that is my plan. I'll kind of cut in and show you guys as I'm going. There's no good way to mount the camera down there, but hopefully this is going to work for me. I like this solution a little better. Before I just used kind of window trim on my red car, and I may go back and do this on the red car as well. But you need something big enough to slip these big connectors through. So this will obviously be big enough. And you, like I said, you want to protect the edges so the wires don't get cut. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this wire up through, unplug it down below, and then we'll start drilling our hole. One of the things I wanted to show you guys is you don't technically have to undo it for all the way to the wheels, the ABS sensor. It does have a plug down deep on the firewall down here, so you can unplug it. I went ahead and took it out. You can see the other end sitting there, but you don't have to. That plug is really hard to reach. Generally what I do is you can reach from the bottom side and unplug it, and then just pull this thing out of its clip, which is what I've done. You see it slides into the clip. So we've got it out of the way. So now we're gonna go ahead and mark and drill our hole. So you can see I've drilled 3 pilot holes, kind of equally spaced out. Now we're gonna move over to a step drill bit. And so what I've done is I've measured the inside of that grommet we're using, then I've taped it off so I know how deep I need to go. and it's at the 1.732 inches. So if you guys don't have a step drill bit, you're gonna need one. One of the reasons I like this is because this is curved on one side, so I'm hoping that we've placed it in a way that we'll get our curve on this side, the curve on the other side, and we'll just touch it up with a Dremel if we have to. So I'm gonna drill these 3 holes and then we'll kind of test fit and see what we've got. Pretty sure that I blew up my drill. I don't know if you guys can see the smoke coming out of it, but I've got 2 holes. And so you can see I've drawn a line between them. I'm just gonna use my Dremel and a cutoff wheel and just cut that section out. And then I'm gonna take like a sanding disc and smooth this out a little bit because it's kind of jagged on both sides, just to make it, you know, where it's not gonna rub on anything and cut through that rubber. So I'm gonna do that, and then basically I'll be finished here. I know that's a pretty good size hole, but like I said, those plugs are pretty good size. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back and show you guys with the grommet all fitted in. So I was able to get it in with a lot of grinding. You can see it's in there now. And I will tell you guys, I was not able to do that with my Dremel. I actually had to use, and I wish I could have got my camera up in there, but I didn't want metal all over my camera. I used some cheap deburring bits that I got from like my local Harbor Freight. And I also bought a new die grinder. Mine was kind of weak. And this Sun-X, guys, I'm pretty impressed. It's small and easy to hold. But those tools right there, man, they chew through some metal, that is for sure. So at this point, we can go ahead, and on the bottom, this is held in by clips, these little guys here, so we can pull these loose. And then I'm gonna go ahead and thread them in basically this opening right here. You can see that there's an opening here on the inner fender. I'm gonna thread them down in there just to get them out of my way. But the other thing is I'll be able to clamp on the bottom. Remember earlier I couldn't get this 10mm out because it's spinning, the bottom is spinning. So I'm gonna get that out too and kind of get this all tucked up under out of the way. And then I'll clean this inner fender really well, vacuum out all my metal shavings, and we should be good to start possibly going back together with some stuff. I went ahead and went over this fender. Looks a lot better. You know, look, if I really wanted to get crazy, I'd yank all this stuff out and paint this, but guys, I'm not looking to do that. I'm just trying to clean things up, make it look a little nicer. But at this point, because I don't want to run this stuff in quite yet, I went ahead and pushed all this wire down here. You can see it hanging here. But I want to get these air injection tubes out of the way. Remember the ones that we unhooked earlier? Like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut those off, but they go back to the back, and there's a bracket that you can pull them out of. It just holds the tube. It's like a C-clamp that holds the tube right behind this side of the intake, and the same thing on the other side. But as I said, I'm gonna go ahead and cut these out. So I'm gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna show you guys kind of how it hooks in here. There's not really, actually it looks like it's been out before because, yeah, it has. Anyway, there's, we can go ahead and pull it loose right here. And I may just set you guys up on the tripod and you can see me yank it out. But we can disconnect it right here for now. Let's see if we can thread it out of here. Like I said, you can disconnect right here on the fender. Oh goodness, it's snug. And then this goes on top of the intake. We may have to pull, I'm gonna pull our throttle cables out. There's a little clamp here that holds them, just to give me a little more room. And then I'm hoping we can drag this thing out of here. Should be able to. And if you have no plan of using it again, like I said, I could just chop it. I probably should. Just cut the connection pieces. See, this thing is, I'm being little rough. But now we've got that thing out. Once we get that out of the way, we can go ahead and put our throttle cables back in. And I will tell you guys, on the newer cars, so this is a 98, on the newer cars, that piece that I just took out, that air injection setup, kind of routes into a vacuum pump that mounts back in the very back on the driver's side corner. And so when you take it out on a newer car, you're gonna have to cap off. There's a vacuum, there's like a little diaphragm that runs into it, and that diaphragm has a vacuum line that goes from that diaphragm to the back side of the intake here. So if you guys have a newer one, you're gonna have to cap off where that vacuum line goes into that diaphragm. So I was looking for that. Apparently, it's been a while since I've taken a 98 apart. 98 and 99 are kind of their own years because of that with the EGR setup. But so just so you guys know, if you're taking this out on a newer one, you're gonna have to cap that off, otherwise you're gonna have a vacuum leak. But at this point, I needed that out of the way so we could finish on that side. So now we're gonna go back over to that side, and there's one thing I'm wanting to do, and that is, I think I talked about it earlier, but I wanna remount this. I don't like that this sets right here, it looks trashy. And so what I'm going to do is I'm gonna take this clip off, and I may end up taking a couple more things off, but I'm gonna clean up these cables, and I'm going to take this bracket off. So there's a little bracket on here, a couple 10 millimeters. We can take that off. As a matter of fact, there's the line that runs into this. We're going to take this little screw out as well. So we'll take the tins out, get the bracket off, and take this little screw out of the bracket. Well, I didn't clean anything yet, like I said I was going to, but I'm doing some test fitting here. You can see the lines coming right here, and you can see that I've got it tucked back up in there without the bracket on it, and you can see the plug up against the firewall. I put the computer tray in just to see how much room I had, and I think that's going to work. Obviously, we're gonna have to extend the wires because it used to be here, and we're going way back there with it. So we're gonna have to extend the wires to get it there. But I just wanted to test fit things. It's kind of setting up on top of the heater box. I am going to zip tie it underneath there so it's nice and sturdy, not moving around. But I think I like that. I think that's gonna work for me. If you kind of flip that thing around and put the metal, you know, the top has that black plastic on it, the bottom has that metal motor. That is what's on top of the heater box back there. So I know it's really kind of hard to see, but look how much room that frees up under this hood. You know, it just looks so much nicer without that big box right there and those lines running in. It looks more like a non-traction control car, to be honest with you. So we're just gonna kind of go back and forth. When I get it final placement, I may show you guys again. But at this point, I've got a lot of cleaning to do back in this area where I can't really show you guys. I'm just gonna clean up the computer tray, some of that wire loom, and then of course that motor since I've got it out. Some cleaning on it, and you can see that I've got it positioned a little bit differently now. I went ahead and put the computer tray back in to see again, and it's a tight fit, guys. I zip tied to this big cluster of wires here. Let me see if I can set my light down. This cluster that runs on top of the heater box, I zip tied to it, and then I zip tied to another part. There's another clip right behind that I unclipped and used that hole to zip tie as well. So we're pretty sturdy. It's not going anywhere, but I don't know yet. I think the computer's gonna go in fine. Like I said, I went ahead and put the box in here just to see what our fitment was like. I still need to pull that stuff out and clean it up, but at this point, I think I'm gonna clean that, and we're gonna try to slide the computer in and see exactly what we're dealing with. I may have to move it a little further back. I don't have a ton of room to move it a lot more, but we may have to move it left or right and, you know, just kind of clean things up. But I'll show you once I get the computer in without any of the wiring hooked up, kind of what we're looking at. Well, we've got it back there with the computer in place. Now, it wasn't the easiest thing. I ended up pulling the tray back out, putting the computer in the tray, and putting it all in there at one time. If the cowl was out of the way, guys, like I said earlier, it's way easier. But it fits, and it's close, but it does fit. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pushing some stuff around as far as wires go. I'm gonna hook up our 7mm to hook our our computer back to these main lines, and I'm gonna clean those lines up as I go. just scrubbing them with a little toothbrush that I've got sitting here. But either way, I'm excited that it, you know, actually fits. And looks, like I said, it cleans things up. We don't have this big box right here. I will tell you that there is a line separator that was about right in this area, hooked on the AC line. I did take that AC clip off, but then I put that line separator back on, back underneath. You can see it back there. It's kind of right above that wire loom. But either way, it is back in there. So now we're gonna continue. Like I said, I'm just gonna clean this piece off and this spot of loom here before I shove that back in and bolt it down. I got the computer hooked back up. Remember, we had those two lines we couldn't disconnect, so I've got the ABS that came in from right here. I pulled it through this side. I pushed all the wires that were up here through on the inside, and I'll show you here in a second, and then the vacuum line. So we'll obviously need to, I gotta get one of those, I gotta get a new canister there, or check valve, because mine broke when I disconnected it. But I've got one ordered from GM. I'm gonna go ahead and just lay this stuff here for now. But underneath, we have a couple things that we need to do. First off, obviously, we need to plug all these things in. I plugged one of them in already so you guys could see, but I'm gonna take the little clips off here. You see these guys? I'm gonna slide those out of their little channel. But we do need to extend one wire, and that one wire being the one that goes to the traction control device back here. Obviously, we don't have nearly enough, and I believe it's either this one or this one. I'm gonna plug everything in and we'll see, but what we'll do is I'll undo this loom and we'll splice into it and then just extend that wire. It's not a big deal, but either way, I just kind of wanted to show you guys what was going on. And then this will tuck right up against the fender, and the inner fender will keep that up into place. Never had an issue. I know people have asked me in the past, have you ever had an issue with water? I generally don't drive these things in the rain a lot, but no, even when I did drive them in the rain, I've never had an issue with water getting up there. Now, if you went through a huge puddle, maybe, but I'll just kind of plug this stuff in and then we'll show you kind of where we're at. I've got everything plugged in, and at this point, I'm extending that wire I was telling you about. I've got, they're gray and white, and that goes to that canister that, you know, your throttle control. I've got it extended. I didn't have gray and white, so I just used yellow and green, but I'm gonna have to make it a little longer. I'm gonna push this through. You can see the other end of it right here. The other thing, guys, is I did open up that loom because I need to ground this, and I'm gonna ground it right here on this guy. So it'll reach there now that I pulled it out of the loom. And so once I get the other end soldered on here, I'm gonna push this, I'm gonna put some separate loom on this piece and then tuck it into the loom starting, you know, right about in this area here. So we're getting there, but I'll show you here in just a second when I get all this plugged in. I got that wire extended. You can see it plugged in right here. Obviously I got all the stuff plugged in underneath. Now I will tell you guys that I did go ahead and ground, like I said, on this stud right here under the bumper. I also, the extra line that was normally running up here and grounding off the battery cable, I also grounded it there. So at this point, we can go ahead and put the inner fender liner in, and we've got everything plugged in that we need underneath. We now got the inner fender liner back installed. I will tell you guys that it's a little bit cumbersome to get those 7mm. If you use a center punch to kind of line up your hole and then hold it in place while you put the screw back in, that's really the best way. Those 3 bolts will be the hardest thing to put back in, that is for sure. And then the 2 10s underneath on the bottom side here, and then just the push-in clips. And I know I didn't clean this, but that's for another video, guys. So at this point, we're completely finished with that side. I'm gonna go ahead and put the wheel back on, and then we're gonna move on to a couple pieces that I just got in that are going to address the holes that we created both for the EGR and the air injection, because obviously we have big holes you can see there in the manifold, and that's not going to work. And then we have a big one that I've got covered in the middle of the intake. So I'm going to grab those pieces and I'll show you what they are and kind of what, you know, what they're going to do. So as I said, I've got some pieces that we're going to be using here, and kind of how this works, guys, is they're basically block off plates. This is from LS6 Innovations, and I'll list this in the description down below. But this one, you can see, has a seal on it, and that one's going to plug our hole in our intake, and it's going to be kind of snug because it needs to be to make a good connection. And then it's got nice little recessed I'm not a huge fan of the Allen head just because they sometimes strip, but definitely gonna look a lot better, and that's not even the right one. And so we got the same thing for the EGR and the air injection. So the bigger one's for the air injection, the smaller one for the EGR, but still have that nice recessed look. And this is just temporary, guys, but I wanted to get something that looked a little nicer than what we had. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these on, then I'll show you what they look like. So take a look at this. Definitely a lot better looking than those big ugly tubes. Not to mention we cleared up a bunch of room that gives us more access for like plug wire changes and whatnot, and plug changes, which we are going to get to eventually. So like I said, the exhaust side's more temporary because I have plans on putting headers on this thing at some point, guys. Not planning on blowing this thing apart like the other Trans Am over here, but just you know, gonna do a few things to kind of clean it up, tidy it up, and make it look nice. So I think we're gonna be effectively finished for today though in this video, because I got everything finished on this side that I wanted to get accomplished. It was a little more work than I thought it was going to be, at least more work than I remembered doing before. But getting that hole cut was really the biggest issue there, you know, extending some wires and whatnot, but still got to get that new piece, this little canister piece right here, this check valve. I need to get that. They actually just called me and said it was in. But either way, in the next video, guys, I think we're gonna do some more relocation on that side. We're gonna relocate a couple grounds, and then of course continue cleaning. So like I said, I didn't think I'd be able to get it all in one video, but we got the hood all clean, got all these wires relocated, and got some stuff cleaned up, at least on the top side of the fender. So anyway, if you guys are enjoying this, like always, please smash that thumbs up button. Guys, if you are not subscribed, please go down there, hit that subscribe button. Of course, ring the bell icon. That notifies you every single time we drop a new video. And stay tuned to see this thing clean up.